Okay, we have audio, we have video, I guess those are really the only senses that we're dealing with here. It is a stream after all. Welcome into the new David Pakman Show studio. This is very, very exciting. I've done a very bad thing, which is that I haven't done YouTube live streams for a long time. Basically, we've been in like a many month period of uh, realizing we have to move studio, preparing to move the studio, finding a new studio, Politicon, summer vacations rotating among staff, no good internet connection with which to do a reliable stream. And finally, now we have the new studio, we have sound insulation, we have asymmetrical gigabit internet, which hopefully will hold out for this stream. So I've got to get back into live streaming. There have been a lot of people angrily telling me they will not donate on Patreon. They will not become, man, my hair is out of control. They will not become YouTube channel members. They're not going to do anything that I want them to do, is the long and short of it, until I get back to live streaming. So in advance of maybe doing a live stream for election results tomorrow night, even though I know a lot of people already said, David, don't even bother because people we like more are doing streams. So like, just don't even bother. In any case, it seems like it's a good day to try to do a stream. So the title about me coming clean on my political orientation, I'm going to be taking, and I'm going to see if I can get all of this stuff set up properly for people to see. I hope that I can. I'm going to be taking the I side with 2018 midterm voter guide. That's not a bad shot. I can put myself in a box now, literally and figuratively, and you can see what I'm doing. So this is going to be good. I am going to be taking the I side with voter quiz shortly, and you're going to be able to watch me take it. And I hope some of you will take it alongside me and maybe super chat me your results. I am going to be doing that because increasingly there is this sort of split on the left. I mean, we know there's splits in politics. There are cracks. I don't think it's a terminal split, but there is increasingly a wing of the left that says I am a faux progressive, that I'm not the real progressive. There are also those who believe that those calling me a faux progressive are actually the not real progressives. So I'm going to take the quiz and we'll see where we shape out. I don't know. I will just answer the questions honestly, the only way that I know how, and we will get somewhere. And ultimately we will know which politicians I align with. And I hope to hear from you as well, because I know that there are people who don't agree with me in our audience, and that's fine. So before we get started, let's just refresh. It's been a while since I've did a stream. Since I've done a stream, let's refresh sort of the basics. Most of our videos are not live. The streams are live unless you're watching a replay. You can use the super chat function. That's the dollar symbol at the bottom of the chat window to ask questions and send comments. I am going to be getting to those in a little bit. New members and patrons get live thank yous. I'll talk about that momentarily. davidpakman.com/membership, patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Please don't troll the live chat. It's just annoying. You know, it's annoying to me. It's annoying to people who are here to not be trolled. And we had moderators. I don't know if they're here. It's been so long since I did a live stream. I hope that some of them are here and they will monitor the chat. And become a YouTube sponsor. You know, it's funny that it's been so long since I streamed. YouTube sponsorship is now called YouTube channel membership. And I will announce those during the stream. The latest is Brody Andrew Mulligan. He's the latest new member. Tito's Journey signed up before that. Jackson Perkins before that. So a lot of different ways to, get attention, I guess is what we're going to say. I will mention briefly, I have done such an embarrassingly bad job of promoting Patreon for like the last 6 months that we've dropped from about 2,000 patrons all the way down to 1,643 as of just before I went live. So just a couple things. If we get to 1,675 during the stream, I'll open up the phone lines and people can actually call into the show. Okay, right now the phone lines are closed. I am able to open the phone lines at absolutely any time. Don't tempt me because I'll do it. But just to do something, if we get to 1,675 patrons, I will open the phone lines. And if we get to, why not, just to add something else, If we get to 1,700 patrons during the stream, I will play a live game of chess for you. And just to prove that I'm serious and that I'm not scared of revealing how poor a player I am, I have Lee Chess ready to go here. And as some of you see, I'm David Pacman on Lee Chess if you want to challenge me or add me or whatever there. If we get to 1,700 patrons, I will play a live game of chess. I'm pulling out all the stops because it's been so long since we did this. Okay. So I guess if there's nothing else to do, I guess I should just get into the voter guide, right? And I should just start going through and let's figure out exactly what my political orientation is, and we'll see where we come out. I'll just jump right in. This is, by the way, isidewith.com. If you want to do this along with me. If you are doing it, I hope you will post your results via Super Chat. I don't even know what the results look like, if they tell you candidates or whatever. So let's just jump in. Should the president be able to authorize military force against al-Qaeda without congressional approval? For me, the answer is no. And I would rank this as more important. I wouldn't say most, but it's pretty important, right? I mean, but we have a system in place that one of the most important elements of our political system is where do the powers of different branches and areas of government, where are the limits to those powers? So I think that this is an important thing. Should the United States assassinate suspected terrorists in foreign countries? I believe the answer is no, and I would also call that more important. Call me crazy. I think that that's an important thing. What's your stance on abortion? I am pro-choice. I don't think that will come as a surprise. And, you know, this is one where ranking the importance is kind of a little tougher because it's sometimes when something is really obvious to us where our politics are, we think it's much more important, or sometimes we might be tricked into thinking because it's so obvious for me, it's less important. And I think what matters is how many people are affected by this issue. And abortion rights are connected to so many other important issues, including women's rights, including issues related to the Supreme Court and so much else. So I'm going to say that abortion is more important. Should the government continue to fund Planned Parenthood? I would say absolutely yes. I'm going to call that, and I know some people might be upset with this, I'm going to leave that as somewhat important. It's not that I don't get the importance of Planned Parenthood, but I think that Planned Parenthood, the funding of Planned Parenthood its importance varies depending on other things going on in the political climate, including the stigmatizing of abortion and other things. So I'm going to leave it as somewhat because I think there are other ways that we could still be okay without Planned Parenthood being funded if certain other things changed. That being said, I do believe we should fund Planned Parenthood. So I'm saying yes. Do I support the legalization of same-sex marriage? Yes, and I'm going to call that more important. Should I, by the way, should I check in to see are people upset with me already for some reason? The Progressive Voice is here, which is great. I was on his show recently. People asking me why I'm a socialist. I'm not. Okay, so the chat is going basically as I anticipated. So I'm going to get back to the voter guide. Okay. Should the government increase environmental regulations to prevent climate change? Yes. And I would rank this as most important because at this point, climate change and the environment is an issue of importance multi-generationally, of irreversible potential, meaning that we are doing damage that may be extraordinarily difficult to reverse. It's one of the most important issues right now. It's a national security issue. So the answer is yes. Should the U.S. withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement? The answer is no, and that is at the very top. And this is not, I don't believe that the Paris Climate Agreement is the be-all, end-all of fixing climate change. And in fact, I have a pretty realistic and kind of cynical view about it, but it represents willingness to work together with other countries to deal with this issue. And being an outlier, as Trump is making us, by pulling the United States out, it's just an embarrassment, and we absolutely should not withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. Should the government stop construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline? Yes, and I'm going to say that this is one of the more or most, I guess, the most important issue is getting off of fossil fuels. Dakota Access Pipeline is part of that. I guess I would say most. I guess I would say most. Now, I have the option here of answering more environmental questions. I'm going to skip that in the interest of not making this endlessly long. I think that there are probably enough questions here to assess my politics. Economic issues. Should the government make cuts to public spending in order to reduce the national debt? Let me just look at other stances. Oh, these I think I might just stick to I'm going to say no on this. I have made it very clear that the discussions of debt and deficit have become political footballs, often being carried out in merely partisan ways by people who don't even know the first thing about how debt and deficit works. To answer the question as written, which is I guess what I'm trying to do, should the government make cuts to public spending in order to reduce the national debt? That's not the basis on which cuts to public spending should be made. Cuts should be evaluated and made on the basis of economic stimulus, on the basis of what kind of a country we want to be, but not merely to say that we cut the debt, because we're just not going to cut our way to a good economy. Should the U.S. raise taxes on the rich? So I'm going to say yes. And this, oh, and I didn't mark importance. I'm sorry here. So I'm going to say that I'm going to leave that last one as somewhat important. Should the U.S. raise taxes on the rich? This is more important to me. I believe the answer is yes, but I don't think that we should be necessarily raising taxes on individuals that are already in the top tax bracket, at the bottom of the top tax bracket. I've seen a number of different analyses as to what tax rates maybe should be, and I think that we need some very aggressive taxes at the top. But I'm less interested in raising the taxes of people earning $275,000 a year, for example. I think that when you look at the tax revenue implications of looking at the real top, I think that that's much more important. So yes, I think the U.S. should raise taxes on the rich. I may just disagree with some on the left as to exactly where the kind of gradations should be. Should the government raise the federal minimum wage? The answer is yes. This is a top issue. And, the important thing to understand about the minimum wage is we can sometimes get pulled into not false debates, but debates that are happening at the micro level and don't necessarily go to the systemic change that we need. So is the minimum wage federally too low? Absolutely. Is the debate around 8, 10, 12, 15, or $17 the debate that by answering the top number changes the economic system, which has been a corporatocracy of 4 to 6 decades in the making, growing corporate? No, it doesn't change all of that stuff. But I do think that the federal minimum wage needs to go up. Let me just check in quickly with what's going on in the comments, just to see how I'm doing. People talking about $25 an hour. We've got a couple super chats coming in, which I will get to every super chat, by the way. People unsure what the video is about. I guess just watch the video to figure that out. Okay, let's keep going here. We're about halfway through. Should internet service providers be allowed to speed up access to popular websites that pay higher rates at the expense of slowing down access to less popular websites? No. Basic net neutrality question, one of the most important meta issues right now. I don't even know that I need to spend much time on this one for our audience. Most of you know how I feel about this. This is a top issue, how politics is financed, media coverage of politics. These are like the top issues that we're dealing with, and they impact just about every political issue you or I might care about. So no, internet service providers should not be allowed to do that. Should there be more restrictions on the current process of purchasing a gun? I would say yes. I'm going to mark this more rather than most important. And the reason why it is not about me ignoring gun violence, thinking that gun violence isn't a problem, minimizing it, being against gun safety regulations. It's just this is a ranking, and I would put climate change, the status quo of corporate power, lobbyist industrial complex, campaign fine. That's just above gun control for me. And that's not to devalue or dismiss the fact that lives are lost every single day as a result of guns. I am in favor of decriminalizing drug use. I think that that's a very important issue. It relates to criminal justice. It relates to incarceration, our legal system. It relates to the focus on street crime over white collar corporate crime. Very obvious, easy one for me. Should health insurers be allowed to deny coverage to individuals who have a pre-existing condition? My answer is no. I think this is one of the most important issues. And it's, listen, I'm a social democrat, which means I believe in a mixed economy. I believe in a capitalist system that is well regulated, that doesn't let people fall behind. And it allows us to say, once you've gotten to a certain degree of wealth, the additional accumulation of wealth is actually a detriment to society. And at the very top and at the very bottom, we want to kind of compress so that we minimize the wealth gap. And one of those areas is on health insurance and the costs of health care and health coverage. Anybody hear that? What was that? That seems to have been, where did that noise come from? I guess it's oh, okay. That's a super chat noise. Okay, so when we hear that, that means that a super chat has come in. So some things should be outside of profit. I think education should be outside of that. Healthcare should be outside of that. And I think if you want to play in the insurance game, at minimum, you shouldn't be able to deny people with pre-existing conditions. Should the government increase funding for mental health research and treatment? I think the answer is yes. Do I support the legalization of marijuana? Very easy. It's a yes, and it's an important issue. Don't need to spend too much time on that. Let's go to education. Do I support increasing taxes for the rich in order to reduce interest rates for student loans? You know, my view is more nuanced on this because the current system we have for student loans is disgustingly predatory. But I think that as big a problem as student lending is the fact that we've let educational costs spiral out of control. There are so many other areas in which we need to deal with education. So would I specifically increase taxes for the rich to reduce interest rates for student loans? Let me see what other stances there are. Yes, and increase government funding so every student gets free college. No, but we should still reduce interest rates. No, transition government student loans into privately managed accounts. No. This really is a tough one. I think the cleanest thing would be no, but we should still reduce interest rates for student loans. For me, the connection between taxing the rich and student loan interest rates is not an obvious one. And I support increasing taxes on the rich. I just don't know that I'd say specifically for this reason. Do I support Common Core national standards? Man, this is complex because I don't. Maybe it's just that simple, right? I mean, maybe no but is necessary, and I'll just say no. Do I support charter schools? This is one of those that is more complex. See what other options we have. Yes, but not at the expense of funding public schools. The entire education system should be privatized. That's a no. No, we should work on improving wages and improving schools. I think I would say, there are circumstances in which charter schools make sense, but the main problem I have is that it destroys public schools. So I'm going to say I do in some sense support charter schools, but not at the expense of funding public schools. And this is a very important issue. Okay, foreign policy. Should every 18-year-old citizen be required to provide at least 1 year of military service? The answer for me is no. I would be open to restructuring the system we have to require some kind of either military or community or nonprofit service as a gap year between high school and college. But the way things are right now, and with the question as asked, I don't think that every 18-year-old citizen should provide a year of military service. I think if we simply left the system as it is and did that, it would make it even easier to get engaged in more conflicts around the world, most of which are really, really bad ideas. And that's not something I can get behind. Should the U.S. accept refugees from Syria? My answer is yes, in the sense that there's no particular reason that we should say we're not going to accept refugees from Syria. Am I saying that we need open borders? Of course not. Am I suggesting that there shouldn't be vetting? Absolutely not. But we should not simply put a country on the list and say, we're not going to accept people from there. Last question in foreign policy: should the government increase or decrease military spending? Decrease, very important issue. Listen, the amount that we spend on the military is absolutely depraved and ridiculous. We have something like 40 bases in Germany alone. We could shut down a few bases and do okay. So we decreasing military spending is one of those issues that you get branded immediately as unpatriotic if you don't, if you're not willing to increase military spending indefinitely. We have by far the biggest military. We have more weapons and nuclear weapons than we could ever use, and we absolutely need to do that. Period. No, this one's just easy for me. Okay, let's get into criminal issues. And I should monitor other things that are going on, like in the chat and elsewhere. I should see what's going on with patrons, because it seems like people are maybe interested in me taking calls. And we'll finish this thing up. How are we doing with patrons? By the way, if we get to 1675 patrons, I will open the phone lines and people can call in. We'll get to that briefly. Should police officers be required to wear body cameras? Right now, my position's yes. And I know that there are some on the left who have emailed me and said, David, look at this study or that study that suggests that putting body cameras on police officers can change the dynamics of engagements with, imagine that word is even a hostile word, of interactions with people on the street, citizens, residents, etc. It can put police in danger by making them fear that they might be incorrectly be accused of using too much force. Right now, the preponderance of studies I've looked at indicate very positive results from police wearing body cameras. So I'm in favor of that. Should convicted criminals have the right to vote? You know, this question is unclear to me because it doesn't say whether it's while they are in prison or after the fact. But I'm going to say that the answer is yes, and not even worry about which they mean. I completely understand that there is a legal case to be made that while you are incarcerated, you have given up in the same way that the government has effectively decided you no longer get to be free. I think legally you can make the case that while in prison, convicted criminals shouldn't be allowed to vote, but I'm against that. I think that convicted criminals should be allowed to vote, both while they are incarcerated and absolutely after the fact. Very easy one for me. Do I support mandatory minimum prison sentences for people charged with drug possession? Absolutely not. And the entire mandatory minimum sentence sort of industrial complex, for lack of a better term, is connected to the criminalization of drugs. It's connected to so much other sort of misuse of the justice system and of law enforcement and the judicial system. I'm against it. Does that mean that I think no drug-related crime whatsoever warrants prison time? Of course not. I'm not saying that. I'm not really hearing anybody on the left say that either. Electoral issues. Should a photo ID be required to vote? I believe the answer is no. And the reason that the answer is no, and I'm ranking this most important because this goes to the more than decade-long system of voter disenfranchisement that has been perpetuated by the right in the United States. In principle, there's nothing inherently wrong with saying you need to present a photo ID to vote. In practice, we know that obtaining those IDs may in and of itself be free, but the documents often required to get that photo ID are not free if you don't have them. And those who are in positions of disadvantage with regard to paying for those preliminary documents, getting transportation to the offices where you can get those photo IDs, are disproportionately poor. And in the United States, based on our demographics, are disproportionately non-white. So the application of these photo ID laws is discriminatory in nature, and I'm against it. Should the Electoral College be abolished? You know, we've been talking about this for a long time. If I have to just pick yes or no, which it seems like I sort of do, I would probably say yes. Now, there are more options. Yes, and switch to ranked voting. Yes, and switch to a representative democracy system. No, but the balance of votes by population should be updated. I'm just going to play it clean and say, yes, I think the Electoral College should be abolished, but that doesn't tell us necessarily what exactly it should be replaced with. And I've talked about ranked choice voting systems that are better and some that are not quite so good, which can actually lead to the winner being someone who was no one's first choice. But that's not really what it's asking. The question is simply, should it be abolished? And I believe that it should. Should foreigners currently residing in the United States have the right to vote? As asked, I'm going to say no. When it says currently residing, that could mean legal permanent residents. It could mean people here on student visas, and it could mean other people with other statuses. So as asked, excuse me, as asked, I would say no, although I'm open to the idea that permanent residents should be allowed to vote. Should the government increase spending on public transportation? Yes, and this is a very important issue. And as I talked about earlier on the program today, not only does public transportation relate to issues of inequality and economic justice and the perpetuation of transgenerational poverty when people are born by through no fault of their own into a neighborhood that has poor public transit because it is a less wealthy neighborhood, as is the case here in Boston, for example, they then are at a disadvantage to get out of that situation merely because they happen to be born in a poor neighborhood, if that makes sense. So that's an important issue. And also, public transit relates to issues of voter disenfranchisement because it's more difficult for people to go and vote, depending on where you live, when public transit is not good. So the answer is yes. Should the U.S. build a wall along the southern border? You know, I was asked about this on that wacky Jesse Lee Peterson show not long ago. I actually don't have a problem with the wall in principle, but if what you want to do is curb undocumented immigration, the wall's going to cost you a lot of money, only deal with a fraction of that immigration, and it is being used as a proxy towards extraordinarily xenophobic and racist ideas. So I believe that the answer is no, although I don't think in practice there's anything inherently wrong with a country saying we're going to put up a wall, but it's the reasons why we're looking to do it, what it will cost, the lack of effectiveness at even curbing the problem we claim to want to solve. It's a political football like many others. Should adults that are illegally attempting to cross the U.S. border be separated from their children? Some of these, I'm against the policy as it currently stands, to be clear. Let's see what else is here. Yes, criminals don't deserve special treatment. Yes, it allows officials to verify the children are not being trafficked. No, but immediately deport them and their children. No, families should be kept together while they are being processed. No, and we should make it easier for immigrants to legally enter the country. I agree with a lot of these. I think families should be kept together while they are being processed. I also believe that we should make it easier for immigrants to legally enter the country, but you can't choose more than one here. So I'm going to say that families should be kept together while they're being processed. But if you are crossing illegally, that doesn't excuse, you're not excused from the fact that you're crossing illegally merely because you have kids with you. Should immigrants be deported if they commit a serious crime? No. So if you are here and undocumented, that's a very specific situation. If you are legally, permanently residing in the United States, and you commit a serious crime, a few different things come to mind. Number one, who gets to decide what the serious crimes are? And does that change based on the whims of whoever is in power? So we might say, listen, we're not looking to target immigrants in a particular way, but if you commit murder, you get deported, but other crimes aren't on that list. And then someone else can say, well, you know, murder really shouldn't be the only thing there. And we're going to start expanding the list. I don't like that. These immigration decisions should be binding in a sense. Once you have permanent residency, if you've immigrated and you have become a citizen, as I have, I don't believe deportation should be on the table. Science. Should the government require children to be vaccinated for preventable diseases? I'm not there yet. You know, I think that absolutely the government should, it's fine for any public school to say, if you want to go to our school, you've got to be vaccinated. I've been for that for a very, very long time. My only concern about the government requiring vaccination, period, is I am hesitant to buy into slippery slope arguments when I don't think that they are realistic. But with the government requiring vaccination, period, not if you're going to a public school, not if you're working at a public university, whatever, right? I actually do worry about the slippery slope. So I'm going to say no on this one, although my mind could very much be changed on the basis of a proposal that would limit it merely to vaccination. I am completely open to that, and I've said it before. Should producers be required to label genetically engineered foods? I'm on a yes right now, although I'm not against GMOs, and I've not seen any evidence that food, by virtue of being genetically modified, is bad for you. I've seen no evidence other than one study involving rats, which has been debunked as having poor statistical methods. So right now, I would say, yes, let's label it, although I think eventually this is not going to be an issue, and people are not going to be really worried about this probably in 15 to 20 years. Do I support the use of nuclear energy? Instead of what? I'm going to say no, because if you said, do I support the use of nuclear energy in very narrow circumstances as a bridge off of fossil fuels, I would say yes. Do I support the use of nuclear energy, big picture, potentially, as far as the question's worded, instead of saying we're going full in on renewables and green energy? The answer is no. Okay, it looks like some trending. Which party do you most identify with? I don't know that I need to answer this stuff. Local issues. Okay, I don't think I need to answer those. And quality. Let's just look at the results and see what I get. Here we go. This is very, very. Imagine if I side with like Gary Johnson or libertarians or something like that. The tension is killing me here. Here we go. Elizabeth Warren, 77%. The following shows the percentage of issues you side with for the candidates running in the Massachusetts Senate election. Elizabeth Warren, no surprise. And yeah, I'm familiar with both of these Republicans, and I'm not surprised that Jeff Deal is the guy I'm on board with less. 83% with Jay Gonzalez. That makes sense. He is the Democrat running. But let's look at presidential. I think that's going to be more interesting. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and Oprah. That is interesting. So no real surprise here, right? Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. My guess is that that's so close that even without changing my answers, but maybe having changed the relative importance of some of the answers, it could have ended up flipped Bernie and Elizabeth Warren. So nothing really surprising here. Not surprisingly also that the Republican who's highest on my list is John Kasich at 48%. I don't think that's surprising to anybody. And followed by Mitt Romney and Rand Paul. And again, Mitt Romney, a Republican who's a little more moderate on social issues. Rand Paul's libertarian streak probably explains why he is also one of the Republicans. Oh, that's annoying. One of the Republicans that I agree with more. So I don't think that this is in the least surprising that Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, as the two most progressive senators, are the ones that would be the ones most aligned with me as presidential candidates. So is anybody surprised by this? I don't think so. I think that, by the way, maybe we should also analyze the issues on which I disagree with these individuals. My guess is because I may be to their left, right? Like, in other words, the 18% I'm not with Elizabeth Warren on, is it because I'm to her right or to her left? I don't know that it tells us that, but I think it would realistically be because I'm to her left. Although I guess, what if I click on her name? I don't know if that's going to tell us too much more. Yeah. Seems like I am with her on a lot of these. Treat all traffic. Yeah, see some of these so I just said no, internet service providers shouldn't be allowed to speed up access to popular websites. Her answer is similar. No, treat all traffic equally and continue the openness of the internet. That was under more options, but it's basically the same position. Like by saying no, I'm effectively saying what she said. So I guess this gives us an estimate, but nothing is exact. Okay, so I did it. I guess I am a progressive, right? I don't know. I don't if your favorite progressive took this test, would they come out drastically different from me? I don't know. It seems like they'd be pretty similar. Let's okay, what do we want to do next? Let's check out. So I said that if we get to 1675 patrons tonight, I would open up the phone lines at 617-830-4750 and people can call in and talk to me and I'll answer questions, we'll see what's on people's minds. We've only had 2 new patrons that I can see while we've been doing this stream and we're up to 1645. People don't want me to take calls, I won't take calls, but I think it would be a really great thing to open up the phone lines and hear from people on the eve of the midterms. Have you voted? Have you had problems voting? Have you taken the isidewith.com test? So you just have to do $1. And if only like 7% of the people watching the stream right now do $1 a month, we'll get to 1675 patrons like that. And I will get the phone lines opened up. And in the meantime, let's go over and deal with some of the super chats. I've seen a bunch of super chats come in here. Let's see what we've got. It's Mao sent a $2 super chat saying only Orange Man bad. All right. Hope that was worth it for you. I think Orange Man bad is this new meme. Isn't it a meme from the right, which sort of seeks to imply, it seeks to sort of patronize any criticisms of Trump as he's just a bad guy? I don't know. Courtney Haynes, $2 super chat. Have you ever considered a tiered minimum wage? Yeah, I don't know, Courtney, if you're thinking about it as tiered on the basis of the industry or the job level, like entry level versus mid-career versus beyond that. I've seen some proposals, but if I were to consider a tiered minimum wage, it would have to be from a robust minimum wage and up, not as an excuse to create even lower minimum wages, if that makes sense. Money Daddy sent a £2 super chat. Are trigger warnings a free speech issue? No, they are not. I think that trigger warnings are a problem, but a much smaller problem than the right likes to pretend that they are. I've been all over the issues about safe spaces and the deplatforming of totally legitimate speech on campuses. Like I've not shied away from that issue. It's just important to realize that those issues get way more attention than the proportion of college campuses and left wingers and social justice warriors than they actually represent. And trigger warnings are not a free speech issue. No. Darth Bryboy sent a $5 super chat. I took several political compass quizzes and I came out as a libertarian socialist. Every time the right stole the word libertarian. Yeah, you can be a left or right libertarian. And for the most part now, when people say libertarian, they're mostly talking about that kind of libertarian, not a sort of civil leftist libertarians. That somebody sent a $5 super chat and then retracted the message, and I don't know who it was. And maybe we don't even get the $5. So thank you, but I don't know. Darth Bryboy sent a $5 super chat. Also, would you be interested in coming on my channel for an interview in December? I'm not familiar with your channel. I don't know anything about it. Interview request, best thing to do is submit it using the contact form at davidpakman.com. Omar Nasser sent a $10 super chat. Hey, David, do you think we should approach people like conservatives who don't believe in fact, but fear and hatred? Tom Nichols, Death of Expertise, a book I highly recommend on such an issue. Let me see if I understand it. How do you think we should approach people like conservatives who don't believe in fact, but fear and hatred? Okay, yeah, that's tough. So 6 months ago, I would have said, you have to approach the people who are sort of voting on emotion by making an argument that would appeal to their values. And since then, I've actually read a lot of material suggesting that it's actually not a good idea to try to engage with people on values that are theirs, but not values that you share. because in the long term, it's not a good strategy. So I don't have a good answer right now. If you watched my clip earlier today about it's a waste of time to fact check Trump, I don't literally mean it's a waste of time to fact check Trump and Trumpists. But what I mean is that when you're in a situation where we're trying to convince people to vote in a particular way or to interfere with the Trump agenda, they have so successfully primed the pump for anything that doesn't go along with their views to be considered fake news, and for the value of truth to be sort of subjugated and made secondary, or even tertiary to whether it seems as though we're appealing to the right emotions. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how to deal with those people at this point. Let's see. The Unseen asks, do you think Bernie Sanders can win against Donald Trump in the 2020 election? Are there any other populist left candidates you think have a chance? I do believe that Bernie could defeat Trump in 2020. Does that mean that before anyone comes out and says they're running, I think he's the best person to run? I'm not ready to say that, but I do believe that Bernie can defeat Trump. A lot of it doesn't so much have to do with Bernie, but it has to do with the type of campaign that is actually run against Trump. And as soon as we're over the midterms, as soon as they're done, that's a topic I'm going to dig into. Alex Stones sent a $2 super chat. Is global currency viable? If so, backed by what? You know, we already sort of have global currencies, and they are right now, they are cryptocurrencies. And cryptocurrencies don't let us evaluate a global currency on every characteristic, but we do get some ideas of what a global currency could allow. And I think that global currencies are viable, but I would not necessarily be in favor of a global government currency, because I think part of what you can say a lot of negative things about cryptocurrency, and I've said many of them. One of the things that I do think is a good thing about cryptocurrency is that it is not an asset tied to a particular government. So I would not be in favor of a global government currency. Ninjax X sent a $9.99 super chat. Hey, David, long time, no text. I was always convinced Trump was a Russian puppet. Voting tomorrow. It's been a rough 2 years. I've lost friends. Keep up the good work. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I don't really, fortunately, I didn't have that many friends who became Trumpists to lose, but I definitely have lost touch with some people over them going Trumpist. There's no doubt about it. David R. sent a $5 super chat. David, what's your guess on the elections tomorrow, and specifically the Florida governor's race? I believe Andrew Gillum's going to win in Florida. I will do my full predictions on the program tomorrow, but just to kind of preview that briefly, I think the Democrats do take over the House. I think they pick up 35 to 45 seats is my guess. Now, by the way, I thought Trump wouldn't win. So why you would listen to my predictions, I have no idea. But I think Democrats pick up 35 to 45 seats in the House and take over control. And then I believe that in the Senate, it's going to be plus minus 1 or 2 from where it is right now. But I think that Republicans are going to maintain a control in the Senate. But I do think in Florida, Gillum is going to win, and I'm excited about that. That's very, very interesting race. Terry James sent a $5 super chat. If the Democrats are such corporate shills, why did most of them vote against Trump's tax cuts? Well, let me steel man the argument. You could argue that for political reasons, the Democrats voted against Trump's tax cuts, but still are part of the corporate lobbyist industrial complex status quo in other ways, including being part of the Republican Democratic handout of money and new customers to private for-profit health insurance companies, to not fundamentally working to change the lobbyist industrial complex. So I think that you could vote against Trump's tax cuts for political reasons as a Democrat and still be part of the corporate shill problem, but that doesn't mean every Democrat is a corporate shill. Jenny Kiss sent a $2 super chat. David, do you think transness is appropriation? No, I don't. And I guess the idea is, if you are transgender, are you appropriating someone else's gender in a way that I guess would be bad? I don't think so. Enter Name sent a $5 super chat. Have you ever smoked weed? If so, what was your experience? If not, why? No, I've never smoked anything. Just whether it's banana leaf or weed or cigarettes or the mouse pad that's over there. Inhaling smoke is bad for you. So I've never smoked anything. Whoa, this is a name, sent a $5 super chat. How do you feel about the use of the term the left or the right when used with vitriol to attack an entire spectrum of political beliefs? It's not about the term to me. The left and the right are useful terms, and they can describe a lot of different phenomena in a generally useful way. Understanding whether someone is generally on the left or on the right is a useful characteristic. But anytime that such wide nets are cast to cast aspersions on so many people whose beliefs vary and are different, I am absolutely against that. Brody Andrew Mulligan has sent a $2 super chat. If Beto loses, would you support him versus Elizabeth Warren in 2020? Getting ahead of ourselves there, Brody. Not ready to take that on at this point. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Let's see if Elizabeth Warren runs. Let's see if Beto O'Rourke plans to run. Josh Welbel sent a $5 super chat. Hey, David, where can we see the fake news panel you participated in at Politicon Online, if anywhere? Thanks for all you do. I have absolutely no idea. I don't know. There were cameras in the room, so it should be somewhere, but I've not seen it online yet. And I don't know why, and I don't know where it is, and maybe I'll do a search for it here. But I'm not sure. Let's check in on what's going on with Patreon. Okay, we started the evening with somewhere around 1630 patrons. We're now up to 1650, and I made the promise that if we get to 1675, I would open up the phones and take a few live calls. The phone lines are currently closed. If you want to call in, I encourage you to make a contribution at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. We normally only take calls on our broadcast show, and we do it on the Friday show. Because it's election eve, because I know there's a lot of people who want to chime in, I'm open to opening up the phone lines. And I said 1675 patrons. I don't have an unlimited amount of time tonight, so let me just short circuit that. If we get 10 more patrons and get to 1660, I'll open up the phone lines, okay? And let me say thanks to a few new patrons. John Knapp, $2 a month. Liz Brown, $1 a month. Robert Salazar, $1 a month. Peyton Middleton, $2 a month. Fishy Pat, $2 a month. Courtney Haynes, $2 a month. And Newberific, $2 a month. So it's just 10 more. If we get 10 more patrons, I will open up the phone lines. People can call in, and it'd be great to hear from some people. Let's get to a couple other super chats. Farmer Kip, $9.99. No question, no comment. Thank you. Spencer Walker, 21, $10. At $1 million tax bracket, we should eliminate all loopholes and deductions, but slightly raise the effective tax rate. Example, if it's 22% effective for the top 1%, make it 27%. I'm open to talking about effective tax rates versus marginal tax brackets. I just think we have to be consistent. I'm not sure I understand. So if you're looking to set a minimum, that's kind of the idea behind some other proposals that have been there, which are you can have marginal tax brackets where you pay 40% for everything over $250,000 and 45% for everything over $1 million. But you're right that with deductions and loopholes, your effective tax rate can end up being much, much lower. I would be open to the idea that no matter what loopholes and deductions you can take, if you make a certain amount, you have to have a certain minimum effective tax rate. The only problem is that you have to do a lot of stuff in order to guarantee that someone whose wages or investment income is a certain amount, that they actually pay tax on that. You have to eliminate, as you're suggesting, a lot of deductions and loopholes, which allow them to lower their rate. And I don't know how practical it is. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I just don't know how practical that is. Scredit sent a $2 super chat. What are the books to read on Israel-Palestine? Oh, man. There's a lot of good books on this issue, but if I recommend any of them, I'm going to get crushed because people will say I'm recommending just biased books. And I don't know that there are any books that people would consider unbiased. I think on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I would read the full gamut. So to understand the arguments that all sides are making, I would read like a Republican right-wing evangelical defense of Israel just to understand what it is. I would look at what Noam Chomsky has written over the years. I would look at Thomas Friedman, who has very different politics. I would try to understand what he has written. Um, uh, there's so many. I'll put a list together and do a seg. Maybe I'll do this as an audience question and really think it through, because I know that mentioning specifics are going to get me strawmanned, and I'm not really looking to do that right now. Terry James, $2. Can the Democrats turn a swing state blue? Sure. Depends which state. You know, Florida is an example of a swing state, and Andrew Gillum may be about to win the governor's race there. So, yeah, Democrats can absolutely turn swing states blue. Booty Blasted sent a $5 super chat. Do you feel that Republicans and conservatives are sociopaths? Maybe we should stop trying to appeal to their better natures because facts don't. No, I wouldn't say that they are sociopaths, but I would, at this point, I believe that anybody who supports Trump is either acting in bad faith, meaning that they recognize the absurdity of what he's doing, but they have sort of like personal reasons, greed, personal benefits that they would get from Trump winning that explain their support for Trump, ignorant of the facts, or cognitively limited. And I used to say mentally ill, and I'm realizing that's totally the wrong thing to say. Being mentally ill doesn't make you a Trump supporter, but I think cognitively limited is a better way to say it. Day Video sent a $6.66 super chat. I am in Massachusetts, much like you. As far as the election for governor tomorrow, who should I not vote for and why? Depends on your politics. I am not voting for Charlie Baker tomorrow, although among Republicans, if you told me a Republican has to be president, maybe prominent Republican, maybe Charlie Baker is on my list of 10. But I'm not voting for Charlie Baker, and I have not been hugely impressed with Jay Gonzalez. So I actually don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I meant to vote early, by the way. I know people are going to call me out. I was not able to, just because I've been working on studio stuff for a while. And I missed the early voting day in my neighborhood. Snake Master 777, $5. Hey, David, have you considered talking to Stephen Bunnell, aka Destiny again? I think you will be very interested to see how his views have changed. I would be interested. I don't know how his views have changed. I would love it if someone told me. I actually thought he's very good at analyzing how people do in debates or conversations with the other side. So I thought it might be fun to have him on a stream and have him review my appearance on the Jesse Lee Peterson program when I was in LA. And I would be interested in having him back. And speaking of Jesse Lee Peterson, Ryan himself says, "What is a man? Thanks, pal, and all hail Blue Whale." I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means blue wave or what. But yeah, Jesse Peterson asking me for dictionary definitions when I was on his show, and I just refused to engage. I simply said, "I'm not doing dictionary stuff. I'm just not going to do it." Let's check in on what's happening on Patreon, because we are sort of starting to run out of time for maybe taking live calls. So I said if we got to 1660 patrons, I would open up the phone lines. As a result of John Selner Hamadi, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, making a $2 pledge, and Patrick Butler making a $2 pledge, we are now only 8 patrons away. 8 patrons, look at that. 8 patrons away from me opening up the phone lines today. So if you're interested in me taking a few phone calls and hearing from the audience, only 8 more of you need to donate as little as $1, and I will do that. Okay. Oh boy. I was waiting to see whether he would arrive, and he has. G-Man 717. Oh wait, maybe is G-Man 717 the same as GR? Now I'm not sure, but he's asking a question in Spanish. David, ¿por qué ella no me ama? We need a left Spanish David show due to the election on Brazil to combat that toxic ideology. Okay. The question is, why does she not love me? And of course, I don't know the answer. I'm sorry. Din Child sent a $2 super chat. Why do the Jesse Lee Peterson interviews, knowing he's a shit? Why am I agreeing to be interviewed by Jesse Lee Peterson? I think is what they mean. Knowing he's a shill. Honestly, I just think it's funny. I don't take it seriously. And if you watched my last interview, I went in not prepared for a serious debate, but just to kind of have a good time. And interestingly, the interview did extraordinarily well, and people wrote to me and they said, even though the guy is pretty toxic and not worthwhile to talk to, you actually did expose an interesting way of dealing with these people. So I think it was worth my time. Dave A, $1.90 or £1.99. Hey David, what are your thoughts on Brexit? I would have voted to remain, and I am anti-Brexit, but I am by no means an expert on the issue. Brandon Roach, $5 super chat. Hey, have you thought about covering international issues more? I have. And when we have extra time in the show, and even when we don't, I mean, last week we covered the Brazil story. We've covered the growth of extremist, sort of separatist right-wing parties in Europe. But I know that there is a demand for more international stuff, and I'm going to try to do a better job of working that in. Jeff Walker with a $5 Canadian super chat. Are more pragmatic leftist values hurt by the lack of any true extremists in the Democratic Party and base? Do we need more far left voices to aid this? Fascinating question. I recently read an article, or a viewer sent it to me, and the title of the article is something like, I believe it's Asymmetrical Radicalization, and it relates to the Overton window. If you are familiar with the Overton window concept, Overton window is sort of like what's considered, how wide can I go here before my hands go off screen? The Overton window is considered the sort of accepted bounds of debate, and you very often end up with middle ground in politics that is sort of near the middle of the Overton window. So mathematically, it would follow that if you shift the entire debate to the left, you might end up with a more left-wing conclusion or resolution to an issue. If you move the entire Overton window to the right, that it will go to the right. But the idea of asymmetrical radicalization is that if the left doesn't move, but the right moves more to the right, the middle, the mean, moves to the right. And there is a case to be made that when you have this asymmetrical radicalization, which is happening almost exclusively on the right, that you do lose, and that you end up with the middle ground appearing to be, or being in some sort of real way, more to the right. So yes, I do think, to answer the question, Jeff, that pragmatic leftist values are hurt by the fact that people talk about socialists, communists, Leninists, Stalinists. There really aren't that many. And some of them are sort of failing to really even be left in practice. So I think that is a real issue. Farmer Kip, $9.99, says, I'm conservative from rural Arkansas. Just wanted to ask your thoughts on a constitutional republic versus liberal democracy. This is a much bigger issue than I can get to today. Here's the one thing I want to say about it. The debate around constitutional republic versus liberal democracy is a fair one. It's a real one, and it's one that can be had in good faith. It has unfortunately been perverted and sidetracked in practice by a lot of people who are making it a semantic argument. And I think I even mentioned this on today's show, and I think that is actually a waste of time, and they're arguing either out of ignorance or in bad faith, and that's a bad idea. I'll do a long form piece on this once we get through the couple that we have. I think it's a good topic. Okay, we are getting close to me opening up the phone lines. Let's see where we are. 1654. 6 more. Okay, just 6 more patrons, and I'll open up the phone lines and people can call in. Sean Sepulveda has made a $2 contribution, and John Tedrow has made a $5 contribution. And I will say thanks to Dan Balistrieri, who increased his pledge from $2 a month to $5 a month. Not a new patron, but I still appreciate it. Just 6 more, okay? If people want me to go to the phone lines, and you don't have to want me to do that, but I thought it might be nice and restart the whole Patreon milieu. 6 more patrons, and I will open the phone lines, although I admit I don't have unlimited time left tonight to keep streaming. Let's see who else we can answer questions from here. That's not a knife. This is a knife, says for $4.99. Nuclear power is preferable to coal. France has 75% of their grid as nuclear and is cutting edge on nuclear research. Look into thorium power. Yeah, like I said, if the question is, do I support nuclear as a bridge to get off of fossil fuels, I'm open to that. Do I want to be blindly promoting nuclear in a way that will take the eye off the ball? No. So I think you make a fair point. No Apologies 20 asks, are you familiar with Cort Van Ostren? He's challenging Ann Wagner for her seat in Missouri's 2nd District. He seems to be pretty progressive, and then he goes on to say, but I have seen almost no coverage of him on progressive YouTube. Do you have any thoughts on him? Love the show. Keep it up. I'm not aware of that, and I feel bad because it seems that I should have been talking about that. I'm going to look into that and maybe comment about it tomorrow. Frenic32 says, you should go on Hugo and Jake's channel. Haven't heard of that? Always open to invitations to other channels. Andy Cole says, wait, are you filming in the Majority Report studio? No, I'm not. I don't deny for a second that I conferred with Sam Cedar about the new studio. You will notice that I have these colored panels behind me, and those are very similar to Sam's, although different colors. I have a screen here, which Sam does not have. But yeah, I wanted to try something new, and we actually have, the background is new in the new studio, but what's really new is that I'm actually lit properly. I am lit in a way that separates me from the background. We have the background separately lit from me, and it's not Sam's studio. It is my studio, but I'm trying a similar look. And if it doesn't work, we can change it up. If people want some of the white panels to be turned different colors, I can do that. That's very, very easy to do. So no, this is my studio, not Sam's, but there is a similarity here. Phobos Moon has sent a $4.20 super chat with no question or comment. Thank you. Stefan Pereira has sent a $10 super chat. What's a good response to the notion that we shouldn't have Medicare for all in the U.S. because we would trade quality for quantity, or have both, but it would cost too much? That there's no evidence backing that up. If someone's making that assertion, make them defend it. We wouldn't have to trade quality for quantity. I don't know if you've noticed, but we already have inferior health outcomes in a bunch of different conditions. Infant mortality is of the highest in the developed world. There's just no, make the person making the claim defend that, because it's simply not true. Joe asks for $5, how do I keep such a calm demeanor when debating or just talking about issues in general? Honestly, it's sort of being desensitized to insanity because I've been doing this for so long, and that's not a good thing, actually. I've talked with a lot of friends about this because they asked me the same thing, and it's not something to be proud of. It's that I've become so desensitized from a lot of this insanity because I've been doing it for so long. And I don't know. I don't know what the end game is. Quite frankly, Art Flores says for $9.99. Have you seen the jump? By the way, a lot of $9.99s instead of 10s, and I'm wondering what that's about. Is there some reason why sending a $9.99 super chat is better than $10? I don't know. Art asks, have I seen the John Oliver segment on family separation that aired last night? No. Also, what artist band are you currently listening to? I'm listening to a ton of South American bands, including a bunch of Argentinian bands. I like Los Cafres. I like Los Pericos. I like a lot of different bands. Maybe I'll share my Spotify. People can check it out. Coolio for $5 says, hey, David, Insomnist. I don't know if that's a typo or if it's Insomnist as opposed to Insomni. Yeah, I guess it's Insomnist. Is the greatest podcast on YouTube. Do you have any favorites? What do you listen to in your spare time? I listen to almost nothing. I watch really weird stuff. I will watch chess lectures on YouTube. I will watch beekeeping videos because I'm interested in maybe doing some backyard beekeeping in the spring. The hell do I know about beekeeping? It's going to be a disaster if I try it. I really don't watch that much stuff that would be at all relevant to what I do. Quinn Reed sent a $2 super chat saying just amazing. No, it's amazing. That's Jesse Lee Peterson's catchphrase. Okay, let's see how we are doing over on Patreon. 1,656 patrons. Bruno Goetz has sent a $5 pledge. Quinn Reed has sent a $2 pledge, and that gets us to 1,656 patrons. We didn't make it. I said I would take phone calls if we got to 1656. I'm sorry, if we got to 1675. I then lowered it and said I would take phone calls if we got up to 1660, and we are 4 away from that, and we didn't make it. You know, I would just open the phone lines anyway, but I feel like if I can't be trusted that I will only take calls if we get to the number I say, why would anybody contribute? I think it would set a really, really bad precedent. So I don't think I can do that. And I also, by the way, had promised if we got to 1700, which did not happen, that I would play a live game of chess, which would probably be pretty embarrassing live. And we certainly didn't even get close to that. And just as proof, you can see I have Lee chess going here. It looks like must be someone from the audience who wants to play against me. Ragnar U, who's rated 1765. Yeah, I would. Should I do it? Should I just play? They want to play a 10-minute game. That's kind of too long. If people want, I would maybe play against Ragnar U. I'm going to get crushed because I'm rated like 1100. I would do like a 5-minute game if you send me a new challenge. Maybe I'll do that just to be nice and to do something different here. But we got one more patron, 1657. That's Eric Estrada. I love it. I don't know if it's that Eric Estrada. I think not, spelled a little differently. But I don't know. What do people think? Should I do just one game of chess if that person sends me the challenge? People saying try it. No Apologies 20 with a $5 super chat. Are you interested in trying marijuana in any of its non-smokable forms? I never said I didn't do that. I was asked if I had smoked stuff. Spencer Walker 21, $2. YouTuber Nightmare Fuel wants to debate you or Kyle. Don't know who that is, but best thing is to get in touch through the contact form at davidpacman.com. Okay, let's see. Jack the Stripper sent me a 3+2 challenge, and now, okay, I said I would play Ragnar U. I'm gonna do it. I'll just play, and I'm gonna get crushed here, and it's gonna be embarrassing. Let's just see if we can do it. If Ragnar stepped away, they're not gonna see it. Wow, I'm only rated 1075 on the shorter games. This is horrible. Just see what happens. There's Ragnar. See, I'm already confused. I don't even know how to play that response. I would know what to do if Ragnar played F6 because of something called never play F6. Ben Feingold taught me that. But I don't, not totally sure even how to play this one. See how it goes. Man, this is going to be embarrassing. I don't think I've even ever played against someone ranked 1666. I could even talk through the logic of it, but then Ragnar could be watching the stream. And I don't know if that would even make a difference because he's so much better than me. Yeah. I was about to play bishop to g5, but do I not play it now? Guess I'll castle. People care about this, or is this boring? I don't even know. I can already tell I'm about to get into trouble, and it's going to be embarrassing, and it's going to be really bad. He says he muted me, to be fair. That's fair. All right, so I can talk about what's going on. This is a move that I'm always unsure about. When that pawn comes forward to h6, I will sometimes actually retreat with the bishop back to like d2, or I'll try to just move the bishop back. More useful if I have a pin, but in this case, I don't. Now I got to figure. See, I start getting stuck here where I'm almost not sure like where to take the initiative. My bishop may end up trapped very, very soon here. See what happens. At least I'm playing okay on time. I think that's a good thing. Not thinking too much about every move since there's only 5 minutes. Ragnar afterward. Oh, he can't even hear me. I was going to say, Ragnar, send me a review of how I played after. I would be interested in hearing that. And by the way, it looks like we might have hit 1660, 1659. All right, if we get one more patron, I will open up the phone lines briefly, but I can't stay too long. Yeah. So, guess maybe I'll take the pawn. Don't see a fork risk with the black knight on d4 immediately. Oh yeah, bishop, right. Guess I'll take that. Actually, being up a pawn, although I'm not anymore right now, is not terrible. Do I take this pawn or do I look for something else? I always like to think of a couple moves. Maybe I would put in, if I move the knight up, could I later look for a fork? There's no obvious next place for the knight. Maybe I'll take the pawn. Could have been a huge mistake. I'm just not good enough to even know like what Ragnar is planning on this basis. And I think, by the way, that we got, no, we didn't. We're still at 1659. So I thought I saw one more patron come in. What would be next here? What would be next in terms of an attack? Because his king is pretty well protected. His pawn on c5 is protected by the bishop on e7. The knight on f6 is protected twice. So now there's an attack on my knight that is not defended. If I get the knight out of the way, the queen can defend the pawn on b3. How else could I defend the knight other than moving it? I could put my rook here, but of course then just takes the rook, and the rook is unprotected. I could move the knight back, and then the queen. I think I got to move the knight back and defend the pawn. All right, I think now we definitely did. Yeah, now we've hit 1660 patrons. Okay, so I will, after this game, I will open up the phone lines briefly. Thinking about e5 to attack the knight, but if the knight goes away and I take the bishop, then the rook takes my bishop, and it's really just a trade. Still thinking about my knight on e5, although I just don't know the obvious next spot, because then d7 attacks his knight, attacks the queen, but he can just take it. So I'm not loving that. I'm going to try attacking this knight. Unlikely he'd really make a mistake moving the knight away. If he takes my bishop on h4, got knight to h4. Here's where I really just lack creativity. Like, I'm not sure how to get an attack going, if that makes sense. Right. So if I use my queen to take, then I'm no longer defending this pawn. If I use the pawn, I'm opening up the ability to easily check my king. So which do I do? If I take the bishop and he takes my pawn, then I could take this rook, but then he takes the rook back. That would be no good. I think I'm going to take with the pawn, doubling my pawns and opening up the G file, which is not good. But, so time is becoming a factor here. Now let me go back Yeah. Okay. So now I think I have to, let's see, if I take the rook on A1, can take my pawn. And then what do? I don't really know. If I move the queen out of the way, then he takes my other rook, and then I have to take back, and I'm down a rook. I think I have to take it, sadly. And now this pawn is undefended. Starting to get ugly. Starting to get very, very ugly here. Primarily because I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so now by moving the knight out of the way, now my bishop is attacked, and nothing is defending it. Of course, I can take his bishop, and then... Now, that's an interesting move. If I take his bishop, and he takes with the rook, I can then put the king in check. And the king is sort of stuck. He would have to move his knight over. Then I wouldn't be able to take it. That actually seems okay. Oh, and he had that pre-moved already. So I'm guessing that this could go wrong. I would love to fork over here, but that wouldn't work, and I am low on time. So here I go. I'm guessing he moves the knight back because there he does. And now I'm kind of stuck there. I'll attack the queen just to make it move, even though this pawn is undefended, and I'm guessing that he will take that pawn. And then what do? I don't know. I don't know. I also don't want my queen to end up trapped, which I wonder if it would if you were to move the rook back. Takes the pawn exactly as I thought. I can again check the queen, but then this pawn becomes available. I think I have to move. That pawn is not defended. So I'll move rook here, and he takes the pawn. It's getting pretty bad. This is getting pretty bad. I guess I try to take the pawn just to get something, and I'm out of time, sadly. All right. Well, listen, I did the best I could. That is, I actually, I'm not totally displeased given that it was just a few-minute game at how I did. Let's open up the phone lines now. 617-830-4750. I'm turning voicemail off, and people should be able to call in. Let me see if I can, I'm just going to mute. Let me mute just so I can get myself connected first. Okay. Let's see here. 617-830-4750. We hit the number. We hit 1660. So let's see if we can hear from some people. Don't have too much time, but I do want to hear from, I promised I would, so I want to hear from a few people. And let's hope everything is working correctly here. Okay, let's go first to Brody, just because he has been sending, he's a member, he's been sending super chats. Brody, can you hear me? Unmute. Brody, can you hear me now? Interesting. Somehow Brody seems to be weirdly muted. You there, Brody? You there now, Brody? No Brody. Brody, if you call back, I will, I'll try to pick up on you again. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on with the calls. I hope this doesn't fail. Let's see. 262. Caller from 262. Can you hear me? And can we hear you is an important question. Uh-oh. I wonder what is going on here. Why can we not hear anybody? Let me try. What can I try here? Let me try calling back in. Maybe the problem's on my end. I don't even know. This would be really embarrassing if I can't get this working correctly.
Thank you for calling into the David Pakman Show.
There we go.
Please do not use speakerphone. Have your question ready and listen for David to call out your area code.
I have to put myself on first to be able to hear other people. Apologies. First time doing this. Let's see. I see Brody's back on. I'm going to try going back to Brody after I get myself back on. And let's see here. Oh, and Brody's gone. That's weird. All right, let me try somebody else. 530 area code. Caller from 530. Let's hope this works. Are you there, 530?
Yes, David, can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
Hey, earlier on this year, you were challenged to a debate by a YouTuber that goes by the name of Hard Bastard. There was $1,500 on the table. I was wondering why you declined that offer.
I don't know why I would do it. In other words, if the idea is that I can just be bought to debate with anybody, then it's like, what the hell am I doing? And it didn't. I vaguely remember people tweeting me about it, and I don't remember like the original. Like, I don't remember necessarily getting an email about it, but I do remember tweets about it, and I just didn't even look into it. I mean, I don't know, 1,500. Okay, should I just be doing anything that people offer me money for?
Well, I wouldn't say anything. I was just wondering what the reason was. Didn't want to sell out, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I try to find things to do that are worthwhile without being paid, right? In other words, it seems that if something was really worth doing, like it was an awesome promotional opportunity, that no one would have to offer me money.
Like if he had more subscribers than you?
I don't know. I mean, I guess. You tell me how it would be more worthwhile.
Oh, I don't know. I just thought if you're that, true to your positions, you'd be able to defend them.
Well, not debating someone is not the same as not being able to defend a particular political position, is it?
Gotcha.
Okay. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. All right. Let's go back to Brody and see if we can hear him. Brody, are you there?
David, I am here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Brody. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
Awesome. Hey, good job on that game of chess. I love the show. I love the new studio. Good job. The
Thank
mics
you.
sound great. So I was going to troll you, but I'll roll in with an actual serious question. So we hear people say, oh, we can't trust the polls. The polls are wrong. Obviously, we know that they accurately predicted the turnout in terms of the popular vote. So have you seen the latest projections from 538 regarding the the straight ticket vote? And do you have just kind of anything to those who would say that the polls are not accurate or the polls aren't accurate? What do you think about the general sense of the polls that you've seen, and are they an indicator in any term, good, bad, or indifferent, in your opinion?
Yeah. You might have missed this earlier, but I said I think that Democrats will pick up 35 to 45 seats in the House. They need, I believe it's, is it 18 or I forget the number exactly, in order to take over control. That's based on polling,
18, I think,
right?
yeah.
I mean, that's based on what the polling says. I think Democrats will not take over the Senate. There are so many races that are too close to call and within the margin of error that the polls can be accurate in that they accurately predict within the margin of error. And yet you can have a very different electoral result, right? So yeah, I think that the polls are going to get it right within the margin of error. But when you have so many races within a point, we'll have to wait and see what happens.
One last question. Are you going to stream tomorrow?
I'm going to try to. I just have to figure out, I can't stream for 5 hours straight. So I need to either figure out a way to hand off to someone else or cut to like CNN coverage and take breaks or something like that. But I'm going to hope to do it.
Or yeah, let Pat step up, dude. Pat's ready.
I'll talk to him about that. All right, Brody, great to hear from you. Thank you so much for the call. Have opened up the phone lines at 617-830-4750. Let's go to our caller from the 207 area code. Caller from 207, go ahead.
Hi, is this me?
That's you.
Awesome. Thank you for taking my call. So I was wondering if you've ever considered to run for any elected office, and why or why not?
You know, the closest I've ever been to running for elected office was running for city councilor in Northampton, Massachusetts, like 12 years ago. And I actually met with a former city councilor who's now the mayor of Northampton. And as soon as I learned more about it, I decided it's not for me. And, you know, would I ever consider running for elected office? Yes, I would. But I don't know exactly what circumstances would get me to do it, because I've built something that I really like doing. And unless I'm in a sort of higher elected office, I actually don't know whether I would have more of an impact just by doing the show, particularly as the show continues to grow. So would I rule it out? Like, would I say I would never run for anything? No. Right now, I don't really see anything happening like in the immediate that would get me to run for anything.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for the call. Very much appreciated. Let's see who else. I'm just going to go to area codes I don't recognize. What about like 505? Caller from the 505 area code. Go ahead.
Hello, David. This is John. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Hey, David. So I just wanted to ask you. I had watched your. I don't know if it was a debate about the death penalty or whatever word you like to use. So I'm a gun owner. I own lots of guns, and I'm a responsible gun owner, and I carry a gun. You know, as part of my. I leave the house with it. It's no different to me than a multi-tool or a flashlight. So I understand what it's like to own and use a firearm. So if I went rogue, for example, and I injured a lot of people or hurt a lot of people, I don't feel like it would be appropriate for, the system to show me empathy and not give me the death penalty, especially if it were on camera and, or in a church or whatever. So I feel like it helps change the perspective if we kind of personalize it and say, like, what if you killed a bunch of people, and why wouldn't it be appropriate for you to receive the death penalty?
I don't know how the arguments change at all if we imagine that it's me versus someone else. Like what's the relevance of personalizing it and saying why wouldn't I wouldn't deserve the death penalty because I think the government shouldn't be killing people. Doesn't matter whether it's me or someone else. In fact, I would argue that
Sure.
This actually relates back to Michael Dukakis when he was running for president, was asked during, I believe it was a debate, what would you do? You're against the death penalty. What would you do if your wife and daughter were raped and murdered or something like that? And I don't remember how he answered it, but I remember that it was sort of bungled, and that the right answer to personalizing it is, I totally get how if it was a loved one of yours or of mine, we would want immediately revenge. And we would want to see that person be put to death.
I don't know.
Hold on a second.
I don't know
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Or we would, but the problem is that we shouldn't allow how we would be feeling if we were in an in a sort of acutely volatile, emotionally volatile situation dictate what policy would be, because it's the government who would be doing it.
Sure. And I acknowledge that. I don't want to use the word revenge. I don't feel that the word revenge is the appropriate word. It's just a punishment to equate as closely as possible to the level of the crime. Like, if the person that was in Vegas that shot all those people, 50 plus people were captured and alive.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be more appropriate? I mean, if there's video evidence and on that scale, why keep that individual alive? And I understand.
Let me ask you a question. Hold on. Let me see if I can reframe this just slightly. If someone rapes someone else, would you be okay with the government saying that the punishment is that they now get raped by someone associated with the government?
Well, I will answer. I'm willing to answer that, but I just want to make the point that if it's on camera and there's no doubt, because I totally acknowledge that there are people on death row and there are people that have died on death row that are actually innocent, being convicted on bad evidence. But in circumstances where it's on footage and there's no doubt.
I got it. So I still would be against it because I don't think the government should kill people. But you said that the government is merely doing what the criminal did. That was what you said. If someone rapes someone else, would it be okay for the government to say their punishment is being raped?
No,
it wouldn't. So just saying that the government is merely doing what the criminal did, that's not actually a good argument, right? You have to defend it some other way.
Sure, but my justification as far as subscribing the death penalty as a punishment would be that the tax dollars are not being spent on, keeping that individual alive anymore. Like I understand that in a lot of cases we're spending more tax dollars on people on, on death row, but at the same time, in certain circumstances, I believe
but
that
how do you
process can be expedited.
Even though in practice it's more expensive to execute someone than to keep them in prison for life. If we could make it
Sure.
cheaper, then you think that would be better. How do you make it cheaper to kill someone than to keep them on death row or in life in prison?
Just expedite the process in those circumstances where we are able to expedite the process.
And how
Like,
do you expedite
again,
it though?
if
Because
it,
do you know why it's not faster?
yes, because there's innocent people that get convicted. But again, I'm trying to tie it back purely to, like, if there's the most premium of evidence being, on footage, like at that level.
Yeah. So I think, the issue is you're coming at this from a couple different angles at once, and they sort of overlap and contradict each other. So we've kind of moved
Hmm.
from, you first said that you thought it was okay for the government to, it's not revenge, it's merely the government doing what the criminal did. But then when I explained that that's not such a good argument, then you said, well, what about the cost savings? Even though the cost savings doesn't actually exist, but it conceivably could if we shortened the appeals and expedited the system. But the reason we can't do
Yes.
that is because that's one of the few mechanisms that exists for innocent people to not end up getting killed. And then we go back to your first argument, which was, well, only in cases where the person has definitely done it. But even DNA evidence, for example, has been wrong. So do you see how kind of you're kind of going from one argument to the other, and it's not totally coherent? And I say that with peace and love, not as an ad hominem. I just think that
Oh no.
I would try to put together the argument. I would maybe focus on one argument and try to stick with that one and really defend that one fully. That might be my advice to you. Not that you were asking for advice.
Yeah. All right, David. Well, I do appreciate you taking my call, and you have a good night, brother.
Okay, thanks for the call. Very respectful. Very respectful. Glad to hear from him. Okay, I do have time for one more call, and let me make it the 626 area code. I do see that there are 30 people holding, but 626 is going to have to be the last one. All right, 626, what's going on?
Hi, David. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, cool. My name is Long, and I'm from California, but I originally immigrated from Vietnam. So this is more of a foreign affair question, if that's okay with you.
Sure, of course.
So my country is a single-party dictatorship. It calls itself a communist country, but obviously, like China and the previous Soviet Union, it's not really communist because it never happened. So as China and its influence expand with its incredibly fast and tremendous economic growth, how does countries like, well, China itself and surrounding countries who that aren't democracies, how do we sort of push for a democratic, progressive push towards the government if this incredible like influence from a dictatorship country like China would
You've got to look back in history and see it how those types of dictatorships have been overthrown. And in some places, it's been popular uprisings. In other places, it's been out of political necessity in order to make certain deals with other countries, either for better or for worse. I don't think that there's one answer. That's a really difficult thing to say because there's not been one sort of pattern for getting out of that situation. Sometimes it's global alliances of certain kinds. Other times it's becoming, and this goes, it's sort of like starting to think that they're better off as capitalists than not. There's really no answer, and I don't know enough about the exact politics of the country to be able to say for sure. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer.
Can I have
you.
a small follow-up question?
Yeah, sure, sure.
As living in the U.S., obviously being educated with a more free education and being able to understand this, how can I, as a more privileged citizen, help at least push for a more progressive governance of my country without sparking or risking, future conflicts out of,
get
going
involved
against,
in diplomacy from the point of view of you as an American, right? I mean, I'm from Argentina, and some of the best things I've seen done by Argentinians to try to better Argentina, even though it's succeeded only to varying degrees, has been as Americans getting involved in journalism about Argentina, getting involved in diplomacy related to Argentina, working in State Department sort of positions, interfacing with Argentina. And that, I think, is one of the ways you can make the biggest difference on your home country.
pursue diplomacy in the shoes of the U.S. citizen.
I'm sorry?
it's through diplomacy and basically like global networks and doing diplomatic works as a U.S. citizen
Absolutely.
on my home
Absolutely.
country. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, David.
All right,
Your
thank you.
time.
Really appreciate the call. Great to hear from people. I don't have more time today. What a stream. What a stream. A couple dozen new patrons, took a bunch of calls, lost a game of chess. I will stream again. That I promise you. Thanks to everybody who joined me today.